The story opens with a boy confessing his feelings, stating how much he loves the sea. To see how this situation unfolds, the narrative shifts back to a small, rural island. A girl named Umi-chan is relaxing and enjoying some lemonade with her grandparents when Kojima drops by for a visit. She asks them about the new resident next door, noting that he recently moved in from the big city. Umi quickly expresses her distaste for the man, describing him as incredibly lazy and the sloppiest adult she has ever encountered. Her grandparents proudly point out how self-sufficient she is, as she handles most of the daily housework. She mentions that she needs to finish tending the garden and head back. Kojima praises her strong work ethic, amazed that she is only a middle schooler. She humbly brushes off the compliment, explaining that it is just her normal routine. After wishing the visitor good luck with her store, she excuses herself. Watching her leave, Kojima wishes she had someone like her at home. She then asks the grandparents what the new city man actually does for a living. They explain that he supposedly runs a bed and breakfast, although no one has ever seen a single customer. Meanwhile, Umi finishes her chores, satisfied with the watered flowers and spotless house. She harbors a deep dream of becoming the perfect housewife one day. She trains diligently in her domestic duties, hoping that a prince will eventually fall in love with her, just like her parents did. A nostalgic image of her younger self holding her parents' hands briefly crosses her mind. However, the touching moment is abruptly ruined by the loud snoring of her next-door neighbor. Annoyed, she marches over to him and demands to know how long he intends to lie around doing nothing. Spotting his incredibly messy kitchen, she takes it upon herself to start cleaning, lecturing him for letting his home get so dirty when he has nothing but free time. He casually brushes off her complaints, explaining that he is simply enjoying his ability to relax. She fires back, pointing out that his complete lack of effort is exactly why his bed and breakfast has 0 customers. Once the kitchen is spotless, the two sit down together to share some watermelon and watch the sunset. She questions how he manages to survive while doing absolutely nothing, but he calmly assures her that he is doing just fine. Curious, she asks if he has any real goals or dreams for the future. When he reveals his desire to eventually build a happy family, she is slightly surprised that someone so lazy would even think about marriage. The conversation takes a sudden turn when he casually mentions how much he loves the sea, using the word umi. Since her name literally translates to the ocean, she misunderstands his words as a sudden romantic confession. Blushing furiously, she panics internally, wondering if he has developed feelings for her because she takes care of his chores. She also hilariously stresses over the fact that she is only in middle school, which makes the situation feel awkward given her age. Her racing thoughts are brought to a screeching halt when he casually continues his sentence. He explains that living next to the ocean and looking out at the water has always been his ultimate dream, completely oblivious to her internal freak-out. Realizing he was literally talking about the sea and not proposing to her, she becomes totally mortified. To cover up her intense embarrassment, she yells at him, calling him an idiot, and frantically sprints away. Left behind in utter confusion, he wonders if he said something offensive, completely baffled by her sudden reaction. Riding her bicycle home with plans to make warm miso soup, Umi bumps into her friends Ryo, Nono, and Kojima. They stop to chat, though Kojima quickly teases her for carrying groceries so openly. She sharply retorts that she's just returning from shopping. The conversation shifts when Ryo asks about the new guest house owner from the city, insisting they go meet him. Umi tries to discourage them, claiming he is uninteresting, has no customers, and simply relaxes all day. When Ryo curiously asks if he's handsome, Umi flashes back to an awkward encounter, but quickly covers it up by calling him a boring older guy. Ignoring her protests, the friends decide to see him for themselves. They arrive next door to find the neighbor yawning lazily. He warmly welcomes Umi back, but the friends immediately bombard him with questions. He introduces himself as 30-year-old Futa Inoue. When he confirms he recently moved from Tokyo, the teenagers are impressed. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, Umi announces she has chores and leaves them to explore on their own. Before they leave, Kojima notices a brand new video game console in the room. Futa invites him to play, and the two get caught up in a competitive match. Later, as the friends head home, Kojima complains about losing every round, while Ryo teases him for taking the game too seriously. Futa waves them off and then notices a delicious aroma. Following the scent to the window, he finds Umi cooking. He compliments her food, and she invites him inside to wait until her grandparents return so they can all eat together. Sitting at the table, he offers to help, but she tells him to relax. Observing her impressive cooking skills, he praises her abilities. She blushes, but self-consciously insists she's just an ordinary student. Misunderstanding her comment, Futa assumes she's shy and tries to reassure her. Flustered by the attention, she quickly leaves the house, leaving him confused. Alone in the kitchen, he awkwardly concludes that teenage girls can get embarrassed easily, while outside, Umi tries to calm herself, frustrated by his unintentional teasing. Umi walks past the beach and spots a tourist in a swimsuit, realizing summer has officially arrived. Returning home, she finds Futa lounging around doing absolutely nothing. Frustrated, she scolds him for his laziness, expressing genuine concern that his guest house will soon go bankrupt if he does not start advertising. He casually agrees that running out of money would be an issue, but his nonchalant attitude only irritates her further. Determined to motivate him, she points out that their rural seaside town actually gets plenty of tourists and suggests he study the nearby successful hotels. Grabbing his hand, she drags him down to the lively beach. However, instead of analyzing the local businesses, he immediately gets distracted by the bustling beach crowd, prompting her to playfully kick him for goofing off. She asks if he wants to attract that kind of lively crowd to his inn. After a moment of thought, he admits that the bustling tourist energy does not really fit the peaceful vibe he is aiming for. When she tests him by asking if he dislikes those types of girls, he completely misses the trap and bluntly declares his love for them, earning himself another comical smack. He then asks why she never goes swimming herself. She bashfully explains that the locals usually swim in their regular clothes, and she finds wearing a traditional swimsuit far too embarrassing. She also complains about the lack of cute clothing styles in their small town. He genuinely expresses his disappointment, causing her to blush. Later that evening, Futa helps Umi's grandparents set up an internet connection in their home, showing them how to look up anything they might need. The elderly couple is amazed by the technological upgrade and thanks him profusely. He brushes off the praise, explaining that it is just an old machine of his and a fair trade for all the delicious meals they constantly share with him. When they curiously ask if he used to work at an electronics store in the city, he gives a vague, non-committal answer. Meanwhile, upstairs in her room, Umi is stressing over a cheap swimsuit she secretly ordered online. Hating the color and deeming it a total fashion disaster, she decides she can never wear it outside and quickly changes out of it. Suddenly, Futa accidentally enters the room and comments on the bright color of a clothing item, startling her. Utterly mortified, she frantically starts throwing objects at him to chase him out. Downstairs, her grandparents hear the loud commotion. They sigh, noting that even they know to knock before entering a teenage girl's room, jokingly wondering if city folks just lack basic common sense. The next morning, Umi takes it upon herself to clean the exterior windows of the guest house. When a newly awake Futa steps outside and asks why she is working so early, she scolds him for sleeping in while she handles the chores. Surprised, he wonders if he accidentally left his front door unlocked, but she casually holds up a spare key. He is completely shocked to learn she has access to his property, prompting her to explain that the guest house actually used to be her childhood home before her grandfather sold it to him. Realizing the sentimental connection, he finally understands why she is so fiercely protective of keeping the place spotless. Stepping inside, she heads straight for her old bedroom, only to be absolutely horrified by what she finds. The room's aesthetic is completely ruined by a bizarre, tacky choice of decorations. When he proudly admits to decorating it himself to serve as a guest room, she immediately demands he fix it, questioning who in their right mind would ever pay to stay in such an ugly space. Defeated, he starts taking down all the weird ornaments. He tries to save a particularly strange owl figure for his own room, claiming he finds it cute, but she strictly forces him to throw that away too. Turning her critical eye to the exterior, she points out the incredibly plain sign hanging out front. She lectures him on how generic it is, warning him that a business with no actual title will be completely buried in online search results. Realizing she makes a great point, he laughs at his own helplessness and praises how dependable she is. Taking advantage of the situation, he casually asks her to come up with a better name for the inn. Although she yells at him for constantly relying on a middle schooler, she cannot help but take the task seriously. As she concentrates deeply on finding the perfect name for her former home, her thoughts drift back to a fond childhood memory. She remembers asking her mother where she would go if they ever took a family trip. Her mother, busy drying clothes, warmly replied that she would love to visit her hometown up in the northern country. When asked if it was cold there, her mother admitted it was, but happily added that the springtime brought beautiful blooming flowers, specifically mentioning her absolute favorite, the lilac. The young girl eagerly promised to look forward to seeing a bouquet of them one day. Back in the present, inspired by this precious memory, she breaks the silence and confidently suggests naming the guest house Lilac. When she blurts out the name, Futa is briefly confused. Snapping back to reality, Umi quickly tries to take back her suggestion, saying a cold climate flower doesn't fit a seaside inn and its meaning wouldn't make sense. But he stops her, genuinely liking the name. He points out that since the flower doesn't grow in their area, it must be very special to her and connected to a cherished memory from her old home. Umi is surprised by how well he understands her, wondering if he somehow knows the story behind the flower. Unable to deny it, she agrees, and he officially decides to call the inn Lilac to honor how important the house is to her. Grateful for her help, he promises to give her a real lilac flower someday as a thank you gift. This earnest promise sends her into an absolute panic. She remembers that in flower language, lilacs symbolize purity and first love, exactly how her mother once described her father. Her face burns bright red as she frantically refuses, insisting that she cannot accept it yet. Realizing that her words might have been misinterpreted, she panics and rushes out in extreme embarrassment. Left behind once again, he simply smiles fondly at the building. Knowing how much the property means to her, he promises to take good care of it, officially welcoming Guesthouse Lilac into business. Umi gathers her cleaning supplies to help an elderly woman at the Cape who has fallen ill. Seeing her struggling with the heavy load, Futa offers to drive her there in an old but reliable van he recently bought to shuttle guesthouse visitors. During the ride, she expresses surprise that he even knows how to drive. He casually mentions that he frequently used company cars back in Tokyo. The sudden mental image of him in a sharp three-piece suit and a luxury vehicle completely shocks her. However, given his current lazy lifestyle, she quickly assumes he must have been fired from his corporate job for being completely useless. Feeling a sudden wave of pity for him, she decides to avoid bringing up his past so she does not hurt his feelings. She gently encourages him to just shine where he is right now, leaving him completely baffled by her sudden sympathy. Upon arriving, she immediately gets to work, cleaning the house and preparing a warm bowl of rice porridge for the bedridden woman. The woman gratefully thanks her for the delicious food and begins chatting. Glancing out the window at Futa, the woman asks about the mainland rumors and wonders if the newcomer will ever bother to get a haircut. She laughs and jokes that he is simply too lazy for basic grooming, and the two share a light-hearted chuckle at his expense while he looks on curiously from outside. After finishing her chores, the two head back to the van. She carries a large bag of fruit that the grateful woman stubbornly forced her to take as payment. Suddenly, another car pulls up to the house, and the sick woman's husband rushes out. He sincerely thanks the middle schooler for dropping everything to take such good care of his wife while he was away. To thank her for her hard work, the sick woman's husband proudly gifts Umi a bucket full of his fresh daily catch. Just as she gratefully accepts the fish, a local couple arrives on bicycles to offer her freshly grown vegetables from their garden as thanks for her past help. Soon, more and more people begin to gather, and Futa quickly realizes just how incredibly popular the middle schooler is around town. The growing crowd quickly notices him standing nearby and realizes he is the new neighbor from the big city. Seeing the two of them together, the nosy locals immediately jump to conclusions and assume they are close friends. They loudly tease her for hanging out with such a handsome newcomer and jokingly warn him not to cause her any trouble. The teasing completely overwhelms her, and her frantic attempts to correct the misunderstanding fall on deaf ears. On the drive back, she sighs, frustrated that the gossiping locals barely let them speak. He laughs, noting how much the community clearly admires her. Her annoyance softens into a smile as she admits how much she loves the island and its people. Seeing her, he warmly says he's glad he moved there and met her, leaving her momentarily flustered by his unexpected praise. Shaking off her embarrassment, she playfully scolds him to act properly as a new islander. Seeing the huge haul of gifted food in the van, she decides it's too much for just the two of them and invites her friends, Rio and Nono, for a big feast, on the condition that he helps her cook. With plans set, they head home happily. The following day, a beautiful woman arrives asking for Guesthouse Lilac. Umi, who is busy sweeping outside, completely panics at the sight of an actual customer and frantically calls for Futa. He steps out and warmly greets the woman as Kaori, a former co-worker of his. Pleasantly surprised that he actually opened an inn, she politely introduces herself. He quickly introduces the middle schooler as his helpful neighbor. Though a bit hesitant, Umi welcomes her and hopes she enjoys her stay on the quiet island. As he shows the new guest inside, the young girl mutters about how stunning the city woman is. She realizes it makes perfect sense for a man his age to have friends, or even a girlfriend, but she is suddenly hit by a strange feeling. Her thoughts are interrupted by the arrival of her friends, Nono and Rio. She quickly puts away her broom to join them. Nono expresses surprise at her sudden interest in fashionable clothes, while Rio excitedly promises to give her a complete style makeover. However, once they go inside to hang out, Umi completely zones out. She cannot stop wondering what kind of relationship the two next door have, realizing how little she truly knows about his past in Tokyo. Her lack of attention eventually annoys Rio, who complains that she is completely ignoring the very fashion advice she specifically asked for. The conversation shifts to how stylish girls from the big city usually are, prompting Rio to proudly declare that she keeps up with modern trends online and will not be easily outdone. Hearing the words, "big city," only makes Umi space out again. Noticing her strange, distracted behavior, Rio playfully suspects that she has finally fallen in love. When she frantically denies it, Nono starts guessing boys from their school, throwing out names like Kojima or Yamada. After she violently rejects those classmates, Rio smirks and jokingly asks if it has something to do with the neighbor next door. Nono argues that he is far too old for her, but Rio shrugs and says everyone has their own kind of appeal. Meanwhile, a flustered Umi nervously continues to deny everything, desperate to keep her confusing feelings a secret. Rio continues to defend the neighbor, calling him cool and gentlemanly. Umi aggressively denies this, attempting to list all his flaws to throw her friends off the scent. She complains about his constant laziness, his overly long hair, and his unreadable expressions, insisting she could never like someone like that. When Rio suspiciously wonders why she suddenly cares so much about fashion, she quickly deflects, claiming she simply wants to learn how to dress as stylishly as her friends. Nono agrees, and the girls happily dive into a lesson on where to buy the best clothes. Walking home later, Umi is deeply tormented by the thought of Kaori staying next door. She tries to shake off her jealousy, telling herself she should be supportive of his very first customer. Yet she cannot help but feel oddly frustrated at the thought of them spending time together. Her anxious thoughts are interrupted when a car pulls up and Fuda steps out. She immediately demands to know where the beautiful city woman went. He calmly explains that the woman already left. According to him, she only traveled all the way to the island to offer him his old corporate job back, and when he declined the offer, she simply went home. He laughs it off somewhat awkwardly. Umi internally scolds herself for feeling so incredibly happy and relieved by this news. Wanting to help him succeed so he can attract actual tourists, she eagerly offers to teach him how to cook properly, which he happily accepts. However, his story was not entirely truthful. Miles away on an airplane, a heartbroken Kaori reflects on what really happened. Remembering his harsh words, telling her to go home if she only wanted to discuss her personal feelings, she sadly realizes that he never saw her that way, neither during their time as co-workers nor in their private lives. At school, Umi stares at her terrible exam results in absolute dismay. Kojima peeks over her shoulder and relentlessly teases her for her poor grades, playfully calling her a dummy. Later at home, she struggles to understand her homework. Frustrated, she takes a break to look at herself in the mirror, wearing the new stylish clothes Rio recommended. She feels highly insecure, worrying that the fashionable outfit looks weird. Her thoughts are interrupted by voices calling from outside. Looking out her window, she spots Kojima, Rio, Nono, and Fuda gathered below, teasingly asking if she is studying properly and suggesting a group study session. Inside, they all sit around the table with their exam papers. Fuda surprises the entire group by expertly explaining complex trigonometry problems. They are all deeply impressed by his memory and teaching skills, and Umi realizes there is much more to her neighbor than just his daily laziness. While enthusiastically trying to help Umi with her work, Kojima accidentally knocks over a drink, spilling it all over her brand new skirt. He panics and apologizes, but she brushes it off and excuses herself to the washroom to clean the fabric. Deciding to change back into her usual comfortable clothes, she steps out of the house and bumps into Kojima. He checks on her outfit, and she reassures him the stain will easily wash out. However, he bluntly comments that the new clothes looked weird on her anyway because they were not her usual style, advising her not to wear them anymore. His harsh, thoughtless words deeply hurt her feelings. As the study group packs up to leave, Futa encourages the students to keep working hard, while Kojima fires off one last teasing remark about her grades. After the teenagers depart, Umi hesitantly asks Futa if her outfit really looked odd. To her absolute delight, he warmly assures her that she looked incredibly cute, noting that the skirt was a refreshing change from her usual pants. Blushing furiously, she softly mutters that she quietly says she might try wearing skirts more often. When he confusedly asks what she said, she quickly changes the subject back to her studies. Meanwhile, on their walk home, Rio notices Nono acting unusually quiet and asks what is wrong. Breaking her silence, Nono tearfully points out how incredibly obvious it is that Kojima has a major crush on Umi. Realizing the true source of her friend's heartbreak, Rio gently hugs the crying girl, comforting her over her unrequited feelings. The scene shifts to Futa on a phone call, admitting that his guest house is struggling and that he only opened it on a whim. The person on the other end warns him not to insult hard work, but kindly offers him a place back home if he ever decides to give up. Shortly after he hangs up, Umi arrives alongside Kojima and his mother. The enthusiastic mother immediately presents the older man with a stack of photos, pushing him to participate in a formal marriage interview while he laughs hesitantly, unsure of how to escape the awkward situation. Waiting nearby, Kojima complains to Umi about his mother's weird obsession with marrying off their neighbor. Noting the older man's age and lazy attitude, the teenage boy casually asks if she has any special feelings toward him. She denies it, loudly pointing out the clear age difference between them. Visibly relieved by her strong denial, Kojima seizes the moment and suddenly confesses his own feelings, directly asking her to go out with him. Meanwhile, inside the house, Futa politely declines the marriage interview, apologizing to the mother and explaining that he needs to focus entirely on getting his failing in off the ground. The mother accepts his reasoning and steps outside to collect her son. Walking home together, she asks what he wants for dinner, but the heartbroken boy is completely distracted, silently dwelling on the fact that the girl he likes turned him down and suggested they stay friends. Left alone with her thoughts, Umi feels overwhelmed after her classmate's confession. Even so, her mind keeps drifting back to Futa. Confused, she goes to his place and asks how the matchmaking meeting went. He tells her he turned it down so he can focus on improving his guest house, adding that he has really enjoyed spending time with her and the friendly people on the island. She agrees, saying those moments mean a lot to her. Wanting to see how he reacts, she brings up her classmate's confession. Instead of getting jealous, he simply congratulates her and says they seem like a good match. His calm, friendly response hurts more than she expected. Upset, she calls him a dummy. Overcome with emotion, she finally admits that her feelings are actually for him. He is shocked and quickly refuses, explaining that their age difference is too big and that a relationship like that would not be appropriate. Struggling with her emotions, she says she cannot understand her own feelings and runs away, leaving him behind as he quietly reflects on how complicated everything has become. The friend group heads down to the beach. Rio happily declares the sunny weather perfect for a photo shoot, hoping to take great swimsuit pictures for her social media and maybe get noticed. Nono feels very shy about her outfit, admitting she only wore it because her fashionable friend insisted. Meanwhile, Kojima complains about being dragged along. Rio ignores him and encourages Nono to pose confidently for the photos, which only makes her more nervous about embarrassing herself in front of him. Remembering their recent awkward moment, Umi briefly glances at Kojima. To ease the tension, she volunteers to be the photographer and pulls Rio away to start taking pictures. Rio then tells the other two to stay behind and keep watch, leaving them alone together. With no one else around, Kojima grumbles about being used as a lookout while Nono stands there in silence, too shy to speak. He notices her trembling and points out that her face is turning red. Misreading the situation, he assumes she might be getting sick from the ocean breeze. Concerned, he suggests they leave and go play video games at his place instead, promising to take the blame if Rio gets upset. Touched by his kindness, she shyly thanks him, and the two leave together. Back at the shore, Rio starts sneezing from the cold after taking too many photos. She calls out to head home, but Umi has already swum too far to hear her. Just then, Futa arrives and asks where Umi is. After being pointed toward the water, he swims out to find her. Floating peacefully, Umi assumes it is Rio swimming beside her, but when she looks closer, she is surprised to see Futa instead. Out in the water, he lets her know that her grandmother is looking for her and that Rio already went home to avoid getting sick. Surprised he came all this way just to tell her, she becomes aware of the awkwardness between them. She quietly asks him to forget what she said before. When he agrees too easily, it hurts her more than expected. She hesitates, then asks if her feelings bothered him. He quickly reassures her, saying she is kind, dependable, and a great person. Still, he gently explains that the age difference makes a relationship inappropriate and adds that she will meet someone more suitable in the future. Accepting this with a heavy heart, she admits she already knew her feelings were complicated. Too tired to swim back alone, she asks him to help her return to shore. As he struggles to pull her along, she tries to act normal again by asking if he has been keeping up with chores like laundry. When he awkwardly wonders if he smells, she sighs and says she will take care of it later, making him apologize sincerely. Meanwhile, the guest house remains empty as the phone rings. With no one there to answer, a message is left. A woman explains that she is looking for a room and plans to stay at Guesthouse Lilac for at least 6 months, possibly longer. After renting a room, the new guest happily comments on how affordable the place is. Futa gives her a quick tour, explaining that meals are not included, but she can use the kitchen and nearby shops. At the same time, Umi walks over, remembering how shocked he was when they first heard the message. Realizing this is his first real customer, she becomes curious about the new guest. Suddenly, the guest rushes out of her room asking for a drink. Fuda tries to calm her down, while Umi quickly brings one over. After finishing it with relief, the guest asks about Umi. He introduces her as his helpful neighbor. After briefly talking about themselves, the guest invites him to sit and talk over a drink. Since he has no other customers, he agrees. Watching them, Umi starts to wonder if he prefers someone more mature. She offers to help, but he insists she go home, so her grandparents will not worry about her being out late. Later that night, the two adults continue talking while drinking. The guest, who introduces herself as Misaki, vents about her frustrations with relationships. She talks about how tiring it is to always act a certain way to meet expectations and says she wants a break from everything. She admits she chose this quiet place to get away and be alone for a while. Futa reassures her that giving people a peaceful place to rest is exactly why he opened the guest house and tells her she can stay as long as she needs. Feeling overwhelmed, she reflects on how she ended up relying on someone again despite wanting independence. Before long, she passes out from drinking. Fuda realizes he needs to carry her to bed but is too unsteady himself. Just then, Umi quietly returns, explaining she told her grandmother where she was because she felt worried. Relieved, he asks for her help. Together they manage to carry Misaki to her room. Afterward, he thanks her but admits he cannot even walk properly. As she tries to support him, he loses his balance and they both fall to the floor. Barely conscious, he suddenly says he feels sick, causing her to panic and rush to find something to help. In the morning, Misaki wakes up hungry and realizes it has been a long time since she enjoyed such a completely stress-free day. Curious, she visits a local cafe Futa mentioned, only to discover it is run by Umi's grandparents. While chatting about life in Tokyo, Umi arrives to escape the summer heat. During their conversation, Misaki casually mentions not seeing her parents for a long time. The remark unexpectedly hits Umi hard. She urges Misaki to value her family while she still can, then abruptly leaves, holding back tears. Afterward, her grandmother gently explains the reason. Umi lost both of her parents in a tragic accident. Later, back at the guest house, Misaki finds Umi busy with laundry. The earlier tension fades as they exchange apologies and move on. Impressed by Umi's skills, Misaki listens while she talks about her dream of becoming a good wife someday. Umi also opens up about having a crush that didn't work out, yet admits she still enjoys being around that person. Touched by her honesty, Misaki pulls her into a warm hug and shares her own experience. A relationship that felt more like meeting expectations than real connection. That shared understanding quickly brings them closer, and the two form an easy friendship. Right then, Fuda walks in. Misaki, already in high spirits, invites him to join another round of drinks. Remembering the last disaster, he hesitates for a moment, but gives in anyway. Later that night, as he struggles to keep up, Misaki casually notes how kind he is for patiently listening to everything. The next day, a playful dog named Mamotarao wanders over, with Umi following close behind. She explains she is looking after him while his owners are away, then immediately notices the mess inside and scolds Fuda for his lack of effort. A reminder follows. He should stay prepared in case new guests arrive. With Misaki out exploring, Fuda has nothing to do. Seeing the opportunity, Umi invites him along for a walk, and his easy agreement visibly brightens her mood. As they stroll, she encourages him to spend less time indoors. He admits she has a point and follows her toward a hidden scenic spot she has never shown anyone else. Along the rocky path, she suddenly slips and twists her ankle. He reacts instantly, checking on her before insisting on carrying her. Though embarrassed, she has little choice and carefully holds on to him as he carries her forward. When asked whether to turn back or continue, she chooses to keep going. Along the way, her thoughts drift. How can he stay so calm in moments like this? Meanwhile, his focus never shifts from making sure she is comfortable. They eventually reach a cliff overlooking a beautiful sunset. He thanks her sincerely for sharing the place. When she worries about being heavy, he reassures her without hesitation. In the quiet that follows, she mentions telling Misaki about having a crush, though she kept the identity a secret. That seems to ease his mind. Flustered, she quickly insists the topic stays between them and goes no further. He agrees, though when he almost adds something else, he stops midway. Curiosity gets the better of her, but he brushes it off, leaving the moment hanging. After school, Ryo reveals that Nono and Kojima have grown closer. Nono shyly admits she shared her feelings, though Kojima asked for time after his recent rejection. Even so, she seems content just staying close to him for now. When asked what draws her to him, she quietly points out his kindness beneath the rough exterior. Attention soon shifts to Umi. Rio playfully suggests she might have a crush as well. Caught off guard, Umi quickly makes an excuse and leaves. Back home, while cooking, her thoughts return to everything that has happened. The feelings remain confusing, and remembering how things turned out, she decides not to create any trouble. At that moment, Futa appears at the window, drawn in by the smell of her cooking. She lets him in, and the two sit down to eat. Noticing her flushed face, he grows concerned. She tries to ignore it, but suddenly collapses. He reacts quickly, realizing she has a fever, and carries her to bed. Calling her grandmother crosses his mind, but she reassures him she will be home soon. Before he steps away, she quietly asks him to stay for a while. He agrees, taking a seat beside her. In her weakened state, she admits how lonely things used to feel, and how much livelier life has become since he moved in next door. She asks him not to leave. He gently promises to stay nearby. As she drifts off to sleep, he remains by her side, silently acknowledging how much she has been carrying on her own. Misaki flips through a magazine, wondering if there are any fun marine activities around the island. Nearby, Futa holds a laundry basket and casually admits he has no idea. Unsatisfied with that answer, they turn to their most reliable source, Umi. The teenager lights up at the question, eagerly describing a hidden beach that appears in the middle of the sea during early morning. The idea immediately excites Misaki, who grabs her hand and begs her to come along so she will not feel lonely. Not stopping there, she ropes Futa into joining as well, insisting it is important for him to connect with the locals. Before long, the three of them are out on a boat, driven by a friendly local named Sakura. She warmly comments that no one could refuse a request from Umi, especially when she brings such a charming guest along. Leaning over the edge, Futa is amazed by how clear the water is. They soon arrive at the small island, surrounded by open sea. Misaki confidently shows off her swimsuit and jokes that they should not fall for her charm. Futa plays along, admitting that might be difficult. Without hesitation, she dives straight into the water and calls them to join. Umi shyly avoids changing into her swimsuit, while Futa tries to stay dry on the boat, until Misaki grabs his hand and pulls him in anyway. While exploring, she notices a darker patch of water. Umi excitedly points out that it could be a spot where sea turtles appear. Curious, the trio dives in together, leaving Sakura relaxing on the boat above. After some time, they climb back up, tired but clearly enjoying themselves. Misaki stretches with a satisfied sigh, wishing the moment could last longer. Umi playfully suggests she move to the island for good instead of staying at the guest house, earning a mock complaint from Futa. Noticing he lives there alone, Misaki jokingly proposes the idea of staying permanently by marrying him. He laughs it off awkwardly, but the comment throws Umi into a panic. She quickly objects, then scrambles to cover it up by pointing at a random shadow in the water and claiming it is a sea turtle. While Misaki tries to spot it, Umi clutches her chest, still shaken by the sudden topic. A heavy typhoon hits the island, rain pouring relentlessly as strong winds sweep through. With her grandparents stuck at the cafe, Umi puts on a raincoat and heads to the guest house. Not wanting to be alone during the storm, she asks to stay for a while, and Futa welcomes her inside without hesitation. She suggests bringing Misaki along so they can all spend time together. Gathered in the hall, she treats the storm like an adventure, comparing it to a school trip. To add excitement, she launches into a dramatic ghost story about a drowned woman who appears during storms, knocking on doors in search of company. Her sudden shout at the end startles Umi badly. Seeing her reaction, Futa lightly scolds Misaki and suggests switching to card games instead. After passing time together, they eventually head off to rest. Later that night, faint footsteps echo through the hallway, waking Futa. The earlier story briefly crosses his mind, but the tension breaks when Umi knocks on his door. Still shaken, she asks if she can stay in his room. He agrees, letting her rest on the bed while he sits nearby. As things settle, he gently warns her to be more careful in situations like this, especially around others. He assumes her feelings are temporary and believes she will outgrow them with time. Hearing this, Umi pushes back, refusing to have her emotions dismissed so easily. She acknowledges his flaws, but insists his kindness means a lot to her. As her words grow more honest, she suddenly realizes how much she has revealed. Flustered, she apologizes and rushes out. The moment she opens the door, she runs into Misaki, who had stepped out for a late-night drink and overheard everything. The realization quickly dawns on her. Embarrassed beyond words, Umi retreats to her room and hides under the covers. Umi avoids going home and spends her time at her grandparents' cafe. Her grandmother notices her unusual mood, but Umi simply asks to stay until closing. The request is granted, though her sudden groan of embarrassment later makes it clear something is bothering her. Back at the guest house, Misaki finds Futa relaxing as usual and invites him to share a drink. As they sit together, she takes in the calm atmosphere before steering the conversation toward his past. He opens up about leaving behind a demanding corporate life, describing years of constant pressure and competition. Despite achieving success, he never felt fulfilled. Everything changed after meeting a kind inn owner who inspired him to pursue a simpler goal, bringing happiness directly to the people around him. That realization led him to the island. Listening carefully, Misaki shifts the focus, questioning why he avoids acknowledging the feelings of someone close to him. He brushes it off, insisting Umi deserves someone better and a brighter future. She counters that confidence matters just as much, challenging his habit of putting himself down. Rather than pushing him toward anything inappropriate, her point is simple. He should not measure his worth so harshly. She expresses genuine gratitude for meeting both him and Umi, encouraging him to believe in himself more. Though clearly affected, he remains hesitant, still convinced someone else would be a better match for Umi. At that moment, the lights in Umi's house turn on. Spotting this, Misaki loudly calls out to her. When Umi appears at the window, confused, Misaki cheers for her happiness without thinking twice. Completely flustered, Umi begs her to stop and rushes outside. Turning back, Misaki shares a sudden decision. Inspired by everything, she chooses to stop running away and return home to face her life properly. Though surprised, Futa smiles and wishes her well, grateful if he was able to help even a little. As Umi arrives, still embarrassed, Misaki pulls her into a warm hug, joking that she would take her back to Tokyo if she could. Watching the moment, Futa quietly reflects on her earlier advice about confidence. Umi sweeps the floor while reminiscing about Misaki's recent departure. She remembers their last talk, where the older woman said that seeing her connection with Futa gave her the courage to go back home and face her own problems. Before leaving, Misaki held her hand and encouraged her to keep trying, saying that if she is patient, her feelings will be understood someday. Though Umi worried about being rejected and trapped in a one-sided romance, her friend confidently assured her it would all work out. Now alone, the young girl sighs and wonders if the innkeeper will ever truly pay attention to her. Her thoughts are interrupted when Ryo suddenly arrives. The fashionable girl complains that Nono and Kojima are constantly flirting, making her feel like a lonely third wheel, so she came over to hang out instead. Just then, Futa steps outside to greet them. Feeling mischievous and lonely, Ryo jokingly tells him he should just go out with her right then and there. Taken aback, he gently rejects the idea, reminding her she should focus on people her own age instead, though she stubbornly insists she would be perfectly fine with him. Overwhelmed by sudden emotions, Umi sarcastically snaps at him to just accept the cute girl's offer before abruptly sprinting away from the scene. Later at home, Umi checks her phone and sees an apology text from Ryo, who feels bad for making the blunt dating joke. Despite the apology, the teenager stubbornly decides to ignore Misaki's parting advice and completely give up on her crush. She angrily mutters about his flaws, complaining that he is completely lazy, constantly spaces out, and seems too casual around girls sometimes. However, as she furiously cooks dinner, she suddenly stops and realizes she accidentally set out an extra plate for him and subconsciously prepared all of his absolute favorite foods. The sweet, undeniable gesture makes her want to cry over her own confusing emotions. Swallowing her pride, she marches right over to Futa's house. When he steps outside to check on her, she aggressively announces that she no longer likes him and gives him sarcastic permission to flirt with Ryo as much as he wants. However, in the very next breath, she defensively adds that if he feels even the slightest bit of remorse, he should come over and eat the extra dinner she accidentally made. Smiling at her mixed-up behavior, he gladly accepts the invitation. Flustered, she loudly reiterates that she is completely over him. When he casually agrees with a vague nod, she shouts at him in frustration, leaving the guy to simply sigh and muse about how complicated teenagers can be. The following day, Futa diligently works on his computer. From outside, Umi calls out to him, dressed beautifully in a traditional summer yukata. She explains that there is a local festival happening that night and invites him to tag along. Though he initially hesitates, not wanting to intrude on her time with her friends, she warmly insists that everyone would be happy to have him there, convincing him to join. Glancing at his laptop, she curiously asks what he is working on. When he proudly reveals that he is actively building a website for the guest house to reach more potential customers, she enthusiastically praises his progress, thrilled to see him finally putting in genuine effort. Later that evening, the two arrive at the lively festival and meet up with the friend group. The girls happily compliment each other's cute outfits. Spotting Kojima and Nono acting incredibly close, Umi teasingly asks about their relationship. To everyone's absolute shock, Kojima boldly announces that they are officially dating. Deflecting the attention, the teenage boy immediately turns the tables on Umi, loudly pointing out how unusually clingy she has been with the innkeeper lately and teasing her about having a crush. Flustered, she aggressively denies the accusation, completely brushing off her true feelings. Satisfied, the new couple excuses themselves to enjoy the festival alone. Shortly after, Rio spots 3 older high school boys she recently befriended. Seizing the opportunity for her own summer romance, she introduces them and quickly departs with the group. Enjoying the one-on-one time, the two of them play festival games and share a wonderful evening, with Futa warmly noting that the fun atmosphere makes him feel like a teenager again. Their peaceful stroll is suddenly interrupted when they bump into Kojima's mother and younger sibling. The mother sincerely thanks Futa for reconsidering her previous offer and wishes him the best of luck before rushing off. Deeply confused, the young girl asks what the older woman meant. He casually drops a massive bombshell, revealing that he officially accepted the formal marriage interview. As she stands frozen in shock, he explains that Misaki's recent advice inspired him to be more confident. Even though the guest house is still struggling, he decided it was finally time to take his future seriously and settle down. Upset by the thought of him leaving her life, she tearfully shouts an objection. Throwing her pride away, she becomes emotional and admits she still has feelings, asking him not to rush into a decision. As Futa gets dressed in a sharp suit and adjusts his tie, his mind drifts back to the previous night's dramatic festival. He remembers Umi breaking down in tears as she confessed her lingering feelings. During that intense moment, he had struggled immensely. Realizing how deeply she cared for him, a part of him instinctively wanted to comfort her. However, his rationality quickly took over. Knowing that entertaining a romance with her was completely inappropriate, he forced himself to gently push her away. To protect her future, he firmly lied, making it clear that a relationship between them isn't appropriate. Back in the present, he puts on his coat, convincing himself that breaking her heart was the only responsible choice. Stepping outside, he runs into Umi's grandmother, who is busy sweeping the courtyard. She notes his stylish attire and kindly asks about the special occasion. When he reveals he is heading to a formal marriage interview, she politely congratulates him. However, her tone shifts as she mentions that her granddaughter has refused to leave her room or eat anything since the festival. Deeply worried, the grandmother even took the day off from her cafe. She asks if he knows what happened. Hiding his guilt, he claims to know nothing. Meanwhile, safely hidden in her room, Umi is sobbing uncontrollably under her blankets. She angrily yells at her ceiling, calling him a stupid idiot and claiming she does not care if he gets married, before immediately breaking down and crying that she actually hates the idea. Her tearful tantrum is interrupted by a text message from Rio inviting her to hang out. Though she initially wants to decline and wallow in her sadness, the painful memory of his harsh rejection sparks a sudden, defensive fire in her. Throwing her blankets aside, she furiously decides to accept the invitation, determined to completely forget about her broken heart. Across town, Futa sits down for his marriage interview alongside Kojima's mother, who is acting as the official matchmaker. The enthusiastic mother explains that the prospective bride is a diligent, hard-working high school teacher who was born and raised on the island but has struggled to find a good match. As he listens, he silently reflects on his drastic decision. He knows getting married will deeply hurt the young girl next door, but he firmly believes that completely severing her hopes is the only way to force her to move on and stop wasting her youth on him. Moments later, the sliding doors open, and a beautiful, polite woman enters. She introduces herself as Yuki, and he respectfully bows, introducing himself as they begin their formal meeting. Seeking a distraction from her own heartbreak, Umi heads to the village to meet up with Rio. When she asks where the older high school boys are, her fashionable friend pulls her into a tight hug and complains that they got into a massive fight. Walking along the beach, Rio angrily explains that the boys shamelessly revealed they all already have girlfriends. When she confronted them about why they were stringing her along, calling her cute and stealing glances at her, they cruelly blamed her for initiating the conversation. They even brushed off their behavior by claiming that men can easily fall in love with multiple women at once, despite having absolutely no genuine feelings for her. Disgusted on her friend's behalf, Umi comforts her, assuring her that those guys are just terrible people and that she absolutely deserves someone who will take her seriously. Touched by the support, Rio smiles and admits she has never actually experienced real love, suggesting they both go to Nono for some solid romance advice. Glad to have a plan, the teenager happily agrees to join her on the offensive. After spending a fun afternoon with her friends, Umi returns home in much higher spirits. Her grandmother gently asks if she is feeling any better. The teenager brightly confirms that hanging out with Rio completely cheered her up and sincerely apologizes for making the elderly woman take a day off from the cafe. Her grandmother warmly waves off the apology, insisting that her granddaughter's well-being is far more important than work. Wanting to be helpful, the young girl heads out to bring in the laundry. As she works, her mind drifts back to the boy's cruel excuse about men loving multiple people at once. Desperate and heartbroken, she finds herself thinking she just wants him to notice her, no matter what. Horrified by her own thoughts, she frantically shakes her head to clear them, helplessly wondering how his marriage interview is going. Meanwhile, Futa sits in his formal marriage interview, politely complimenting Yuki by noting she is even more charming in person than in her photographs. Modestly accepting the praise, she admits to feeling a bit out of her element. He laughs and confesses that he is also terrible at formal situations. To ease the awkward tension, he suggests they take a relaxing walk outside together, which she happily accepts. Strolling in the warm weather, he thoughtfully asks if she is getting too hot. She assures him she is perfectly fine, explaining that her traditional kimono is quite breathable and her parasol provides plenty of shade. As they walk, he opens up about his life on the island, admitting somewhat sheepishly that his guest house is currently failing and barely gets any customers. Instead of judging him, she kindly reassures him that things do not always work out right away. Relaxing further, he passionately shares how much he truly loves the island, praising the breathtaking scenery and the incredibly warm, open-hearted locals. Impressed by his genuine joy, she smiles at his happiness. Just as they approach the sea, she suddenly trips over her unaccustomed footwear. He quickly catches her hand, perfectly balancing her before she can fall. When she apologizes for her clumsiness, he gentlemanly takes the blame for not paying closer attention to the rocky path. Touched by his gentle nature, she smiles sweetly and confesses that she would be incredibly happy to marry someone as kind as him, causing him to blush deeply at the bold remark.
Here I am, know it's been